Warning, this video contains spoilers. Joaquin Phoenix's Oscar-winning performance in Joker is mesmerising from the first frame until the last. His portrayal of Arthur Fleck's struggle with mental illness and gradual transformation into the Joker lives long in the memory. The Joker is a character who had already been portrayed successfully in cinema, with Jack Nicholson in 1989's Batman and Heath Ledger's Oscar-winning performance in The Dark Knight. 2019's Joker differs from both movies in that it's a character study. Joaquin Phoenix appears in just about every scene and has a total screen time of 1 hour and 43 minutes. Phoenix's performance in just about every scene feels like an Oscar-nominated performance, but there's one scene in the movie that feels like the Oscar-winning performance. That's this scene here, toward the end of the movie where Arthur Fleck appears on the Murray Franklin show. This scene feels like the moment where everything that's happened in the movie so far has been leading to, as the character balances on the line between being Arthur Fleck and the Joker. At the beginning of the movie, Arthur Fleck is a good person. He looks after his mother and holds down a job despite dealing with a mental illness. He is a victim of his circumstances. His dream of being a stand-up comedian will never happen, as his condition of PBA makes it virtually impossible for him to speak in public without breaking into inappropriate laughter. We never learn if Arthur's material is actually funny. In the scene where Arthur watches the Murray Franklin show with his mother, we get a glimpse of how frustrated he is in his life. When he imagines Murray inviting him to come on stage, he describes his experience of spending his life caring for his mother and has his efforts acknowledged by Murray. This is in contrast to the real world, where lives like Arthur's are rarely recognised. Murray Franklin is Arthur's idol, and what he imagines his ideal father figure to be. He imagines Murray telling him that he wished he had a son like Arthur. And that's what makes this scene, when Arthur's at the hospital and sees the video of his stand-up act appear on the Murray Franklin show, so heartbreaking. From the initial joy on his face as he sees his dream of appearing on the show come true, to heartbreak and eventually anger as his idol mocks his material live on air. By this point in the movie, Arthur had already experienced the setbacks of losing his job and having his counselling and medication cut by social services. But this one hurts him the most. Murray Franklin is someone who Arthur looks up to, someone he views as an imaginary father figure. He's an entertainer, something that Arthur aspires to be. So at this moment, not only does Arthur see his ambitious dream of being an entertainer disappear, he also feels betrayed by the man who felt, in his mind, like a father figure. In a city that's divided between people like Arthur, those below the poverty line who Thomas Wayne refers to as clowns, and those who are judged to have made something of their lives, Arthur realises that Murray Franklin is not like him. He doesn't understand him. He is now, in Arthur's eyes, one of them, and stands for all the same things that someone like Thomas Wayne does. And so when we get to this scene, when he appears on the Murray Franklin show, he's no longer meeting his idol. He's confronting his enemy. The entire movie up to this point has been a transformation, as Arthur becomes less himself and moves toward being the Joker. At the beginning of the movie, Arthur is socially awkward. His boss comments that his co-workers find being in his company uncomfortable. He has no confidence and finds it difficult to express himself. In his job as a clown, Arthur works behind a mask. And when behind the mask, he seems capable of performing as an entertainer. He doesn't have to speak. However, when he tries his stand-up routine, with no makeup and speaking to an audience, he fails to properly deliver his lines. As Arthur's transformation into the Joker continues, this concept of being more comfortable and confident behind the mask of makeup seems to become more relevant as his mental health deteriorates and he stops taking his medication. As Arthur rehearses his appearance on the Murray Franklin show, we see his frustration as he fails to deliver his lines in the confident manner he wants to. He can't sit comfortably on the couch, and when he practices his live-on-air suicide, he fumbles when taking the gun from his waist. However, the more he covers himself in a costume, dyeing his hair and applying face paint, his confidence seems to grow. While earlier in the movie these stairs were a daily struggle for Arthur, now he dances on them. He had awkwardly rehearsed walking on stage and greeting Murray and his guests, but by the time he actually arrives at the studio, dressed in costume, he dances on stage. At this point he is, in his own words, a man with nothing to lose. He has become the main suspect in the murder of the Wayne employees on the subway. He has murdered his mother and his former co-worker Randall, whose dead body is waiting to be found in Arthur's apartment. This scene will, in one way or another, be the end game for Arthur's character. The build-up to the scene suggests that Arthur will take his own life live on air with the city of Gotham watching. The certainty of this plan seems to give Arthur confidence as he arrives on stage. In the early exchanges between him and Murray, he appears in control. He knows what he wants to say and what he plans to do. Even his laughter when Murray makes a joke appears more controlled. It doesn't take hold of him as in previous scenes. However, as the exchange continues and after Arthur reveals that he killed the men on the subway, the control of the situation begins to shift, as Murray, the experienced talk show host, takes control and begins to dictate the conversation. Arthur becomes visibly frustrated as he loses control, and the certainty of his plan becomes compromised. This is where it stops being a good scene and becomes a great scene. Joaquin Phoenix's performance is magnificent as we see him lose control of the situation. As an audience, we know what was supposed to happen when Arthur went on stage. Now as we see him lose control of his emotions, anything is possible. In the original screenplay, this scene contained cutaways to the director's booth and to Sophie watching the show at her apartment. This tells us two things. First, that Sophie is alive in the original script, and suggests that Arthur didn't harm her in the scene at her apartment. And second, that Joaquin Phoenix's performance was so strong here that the director decided to keep the camera on him for the duration. As his eyes narrow when he stares at Murray with hatred, suddenly as an audience we have no idea what's going to come next. There's no longer any way to predict this character, and Joaquin Phoenix portrays this fantastically with a range of emotions which, because of the face paint, we can only really see through his eyes. It is, in every sense, an Oscar-winning performance. The end of the scene when Arthur kills Murray live on air feels like the moment when Arthur finally becomes the Joker. As he pulls the trigger, his transformation is complete. Murray is the sixth person who Arthur kills in the movie, and each murder seems to become less justifiable. When he kills the three men on the subway, they'd been kicking him on the ground and it could be argued as self-defense. When he kills his mother, he had just found out that she had allowed him to be abused as a child. Although Randall was a bully and was partly responsible for Arthur losing his job, his gruesome death was an act of someone losing their sanity. Murray Franklin clearly wasn't a nice person, but he also didn't deserve to die. In the final murder that the character commits, that of the doctor at the hospital, the victim is completely innocent and someone he knows nothing about. So in this scene, Arthur doesn't take his own life as expected, but in a way, from this moment, Arthur is no more. Arthur dies, and the Joker is born. Thanks for watching. Don't forget to help the channel grow by liking the video and hitting the subscribe button.